She cried for breath, but silence answered back. No air, no mercy, no tomorrow. The hospital walls hummed with the sound of machines, a mechanical heartbeat that didn't belong to her, or maybe it did. The world outside was waiting, holding its breath, unaware that another light was dimming in this small white room. The clock ticked, as if measuring her distance from the rest of us. 1 second further, 1 breath less. I remember standing there not knowing whether to hold her hand or to let her go. The nurses spoke in soft, practiced tones, as though they'd already buried this moment 100 times before. Her eyes flickered open once, not wide enough to see the world, but enough to find me, her mother, through the blur. There was a time she would run barefoot across the backyard, the sun chasing her laughter down the hill. Now even the sun seemed to dim, afraid to intrude upon the sacred quiet. When I leaned close, I could still smell the faint sweetness of her hair, that scent of summer grass and crayons, the fragrance of a childhood that would never reach tomorrow. Tell me, reader, how do you breathe again when the air that gave you life is gone? Her name was Abigail Lee Turner, but everyone called her Abby. She was 7 years old when she died on a spring morning in 2003, while her father was deployed in Iraq. The war had already taken so many names, but ours wasn't meant to be one of them. Not here, not in our quiet Missouri town where the loudest sound had always been the cicadas in July. Her father, Staff Sergeant Daniel Turner, had left the year before. His letters came in careful lines. Never too much truth, never too much hope. Keep her smiling for me, he'd written once. I tried. God knows I tried. But the world found another way to take her, not with bombs or bullets, but with the cruel stillness of pneumonia that crept into her lungs and refused to leave. Every night since, I've replayed that morning in my mind, the way the light fell across her pillow, the way the silence pressed down on everything, and how I whispered her name into the emptiness as though sound alone could make her stay. This letter is for Daniel, who came home to a folded flag and a child's empty bed. And for Abby, whose laughter still drifts through the house when I leave the windows open. It began with a cough, just a small one, the kind that rattles briefly in a child's chest before vanishing into laughter. Abby was sitting at the kitchen table, her feet swinging above the floor, the crayons spread like candy across the wood. She was drawing her father in uniform, tall, smiling, his hand holding hers. She'd colored his boots too big and his eyes the wrong shade, but when I told her that, she shook her head. No, Mama, they're this color when he misses us. That's the kind of child she was, always filling the world with what she believed it ought to be. The kettle whistled, the morning light poured through the window, golden and warm. Outside, the dog barked at the mail truck and life went on, ordinary, unremarkable, beautiful in its sameness. If I had known that was the last normal morning, I would have memorized it all. The curl of her hair at her neck, the sound of her spoon tapping the cereal bowl, even the way she hummed while she drew. By afternoon, her cough deepened. She grew pale, her energy fading like the last light of day. I laid her on the couch, tucked her beneath her father's jacket, the one that still smelled faintly of dust and diesel. It's too big, she mumbled, but she smiled as it swallowed her small frame. That night, she asked for a story, one her father had told her before he left, the one about the stars that could talk to each other, whispering from sky to sky, so no one was ever truly alone. I told it as best I could, though my voice trembled when I reached the end. Her breathing had grown shallow. Each inhale sounded like a thread about to snap. I sat beside her, counting the seconds between breaths, praying to every god I'd ever heard of. The clock ticked on the mantel, slow and merciless. Outside, the spring rain began to fall, light, constant, tapping against the glass like soft fingers asking to be let in. When dawn came, the room felt wrong. The light was dim, grey. I thought she was sleeping, her lips parted, her hand resting near the edge of the blanket. I called her name softly, not wanting to wake her too soon. But when I touched her cheek, it was cool, too still, too quiet. There are no words for that kind of silence. It isn't absence, it's weight. The air itself pressed down until I couldn't breathe. I tried to call for help, but my voice came out as a whisper, a sound lost in the folds of a world that refused to move. The ambulance came. The doctors tried. I remember their faces, practiced and distant, but I knew before they spoke. I'd known since that first breath she didn't take. Later, when they let me hold her one last time, I leaned close, my forehead against hers, and whispered, "You can rest now, baby." Her fingers were still curled, as if reaching for something unseen. Maybe for her father, maybe for the sky. And somewhere, deep in the hum of the machines, I thought I heard her sigh. The call came 2 weeks after the funeral. His voice, thin through the static of some desert outpost, sounded both near and impossibly far away. "Where's Abby?" he asked. There are no words that can travel across that kind of silence, the distance between knowing and breaking. I felt the world tilt then, the way it does when gravity forgets its job. I opened my mouth, but nothing came. I could hear soldiers talking behind him, the rumble of machinery, a helicopter's blades cutting through sand. Life still happening, war still moving forward. And here I was, a woman standing in a kitchen surrounded by casseroles and sympathy cards, with nothing but a truth that could destroy him. When I finally spoke, my voice didn't sound like mine. "She's gone, Daniel." For a moment I thought the line had gone dead. Then came a sound I'll never forget. Not a cry, not a word, but a long, hollow exhale. It was the kind of breath you take when your whole body refuses to accept what your heart already knows. He didn't ask how. He didn't ask when. He only said, "I'll come home." Then the line filled with static and he was gone again, swallowed by the same war that had already taken too much from us. I don't remember much of the days that followed. People kept stopping by with flowers that wilted too quickly, hugs that lasted too long. The world outside was soft and green again, spring in full bloom. But inside our home, everything stayed grey. When Daniel finally came back, I almost didn't recognize him. His face was sharper, the skin around his eyes burnt from too much sun and too little sleep. His uniform hung from him, heavy with sand, with the smell of diesel and dust. He didn't say a word when he walked through the door. He just looked at me, then past me, toward the stairs. "Where is she?" he asked again. His voice was quieter now, as though he already knew. I led him to her room. She'd left it just as it had been. A soft blue sky painted on the walls, glow-in-the-dark stars scattered across the ceiling. Her drawings still taped by the window, her crayons still on the desk. A half-finished letter she'd been writing to him in blocky, uneven letters. "Dear Daddy, I miss you. I hope you have ice cream where you are." He sat down on her bed and picked up the stuffed rabbit she slept with every night. He turned it over in his hands, thumb tracing the seam on its ear, worn smooth from all the time she'd held it. His shoulders trembled once, then went still. "She still smells like sunshine," he whispered. I wanted to touch him, to tell him something that would make it better. But there are no words that can do that. So I just sat on the floor beside him and let the silence say everything. That night, he refused to sleep in our bed. I found him curled up on the floor beside her empty one, the rabbit held close against his chest. I pulled a blanket over him, though he didn't seem to feel the cold. He stayed there until morning. When the sun rose, its light stretched through the window and fell across them both. A soldier and a toy, wrapped in the quiet of a room too small to hold all that grief. I watched from the doorway, and for the first time, I saw how war doesn't end when the guns fall silent. Sometimes it comes home disguised as a man still breathing, carrying ghosts no one else can see. And in that moment, I knew Abby had not been the only one the war had taken. After the funeral, time didn't move the same way. The days no longer began or ended. They just bled into one another, grey and soundless, like fog that refused to lift. The world outside kept spinning, of course. The mail still came. The church bells still rang. But inside our house, the air felt different. Too still, too cautious, as if even the walls were afraid to make a sound. Daniel stayed home for a while after returning. The army gave him leave. To heal, they said. But healing isn't what he did. He moved through the house like a man half awake, half lost, as though he'd stepped into a dream he couldn't escape. He'd walk down the hallway in the middle of the night and pause by Abby's door, his hand hovering near the knob, but never opening it. Then, finally, one morning, he did. I watched from the kitchen as he stepped inside. He stood there a long time, saying nothing, just breathing in the air of that small, frozen world. Her shoes were still by the bed, pink canvas sneakers with one lace untied. Her drawings still clung to the walls, bright suns and crooked hearts, each one signed with the same uneven scrawl, Abby T. He picked up one of her pictures, the one she'd made before she got sick. It showed him standing tall in his uniform, holding her hand beneath a yellow sky. At the bottom she'd written, "My daddy keeps the bad guys away." He stared at it until his hands began to shake, then set it back down gently, like it was glass. That was when the nightmares began. He'd wake in the middle of the night shouting her name. Sometimes mine, sometimes names I didn't recognize. Maybe soldiers, maybe ghosts. Once, I found him sitting on the porch in the dark, staring into nothing, whispering, "She called for me." I heard her. I told him it was just a dream, but he looked at me with eyes that didn't believe in dreams anymore. "No," he said. "She called." He started talking to her room too, at first quietly, then more often. I'd hear his voice drift down the hallway, telling her about the sandstorms, about the food, about how he'd promised to bring her a bracelet made of shells from Kuwait. He'd laugh sometimes while he spoke, and for a moment I could almost see him as he used to be. Then the quiet would return, heavier than before. One afternoon, I came home to find him sitting on her bed, her stuffed rabbit in his lap. The sunlight was spilling across the floor, warm and golden, but he didn't look up. "Do you think she blames me?" he asked. "No," I said. "She loved you." He nodded, though I could tell he didn't believe me. War had taught him to see fault in every loss, that someone must always be responsible, that someone must pay the price. And in his mind, it was him. The letters from his unit kept arriving, stamped, official, unread. He couldn't go back. Not yet. Maybe not ever. He spent his days fixing small things, a creaky step, a loose doorknob, the fence she used to climb, as if keeping the world in order could somehow make sense of the one that had broken. And I tried to keep breathing. I filled the house with sound, the radio, the kettle, anything to drown out the silence. But no matter what I did, I could still hear her. Sometimes in the rustle of the curtains, sometimes in the wind that swept through the fields behind our house. It wasn't haunting, it was remembering. That's what grief really is, I've learned. It's not just pain, it's an echo. The sound of love still searching for a place to land. And in this house, her voice still lingers. Not loud, not sorrowful, just present. Like a note at the end of a song that refuses to fade. It has been 22 years since that morning. 22 springs that have come and gone, each one carrying her memory like pollen in the air. The world has changed so much since 2003. But here, in this small Missouri town, time still circles back to her. Every April, when the dogwoods bloom, I find myself standing by the window, watching the light sift through the branches, and I can almost see her. A flash of yellow dress, a blur of movement, a laugh too quick to catch. Daniel and I never left the house. We talked about it once, after the first year, when the memories were still too raw to breathe around. But every time we tried, something stopped us. Maybe it was her drawings still taped to the wall. Maybe it was her tiny handprint pressed into the porch cement the summer before she passed. It's right beside the mark of the dog's paw, a story frozen in concrete, refusing to fade. Over the years, we learned to live alongside the absence. The air softened. The grief didn't leave, but it changed shape. Less of a wound, more of a scar you can touch without flinching. We found rituals, small ones, that kept her close. Every spring, Daniel plants marigolds along the fence line. "They're her color," he says, and he's right, bright and stubborn, standing tall even in the wind. He doesn't wear his uniform anymore. After he left the service, he boxed it away in the attic, along with his medals and the folded flag they'd given him when he came home. Some nights, I hear him moving around up there, and I know he's looking at them again. When he comes back down, his hands smell faintly of cedar and old fabric, and his eyes look younger somehow. Not healed, but remembering what it felt like before the world went quiet. We still keep her room as it was. People tell us we should change it, turn it into a study or a guest room, but I can't. That room breathes differently, as if she's still there, just out of sight. The stars she stuck to the ceiling have lost their glow, but when the moonlight hits them, they shimmer faintly, like tiny promises. Sometimes I go in and sit by the window with a cup of tea. I don't say anything. I don't need to. The silence there is not heavy anymore, it's gentle, like the hush before a lullaby. Daniel talks to her still. I'll find him in the garden, hands in the soil, murmuring things only she can hear. He tells her about the rain, about the new neighbor's dog, about the tomatoes that didn't take this year. Once, I asked him if he ever got tired of speaking to someone who couldn't answer. He looked at me and said, "She does answer, just not in words." I think I know what he means. There are moments, small, unremarkable moments, when the air shifts in a way that feels familiar, when a song comes on the radio that she used to hum, when the wind catches the chimes by the porch and they ring softly even though there's no breeze. That's her, I think. Not a ghost, not a haunting, just a presence. Last week, I opened one of her old notebooks. On the last page was a drawing, a circle of people holding hands under a bright yellow sun. She'd written one sentence in her uneven print, "Everyone is together when it's bright." I sat there a long time staring at those words. Because maybe that's all grief really asks of us, not to move on, but to keep the light alive. And so we do. Every day, in small, ordinary ways, we breathe, we plant, we remember. I often think about the question that haunted me after she died. How do you breathe again when the air that gave you life is gone? Now I know the answer. You breathe because they once did. You breathe for them. Each inhale becomes a promise that their laughter will not vanish, that their name will not fade. Abby lives in every spring morning, in the marigolds her father tends, in the quiet hum of the wind that moves through our yard. She is not gone, just folded into the stillness between heartbeats, waiting to be heard by those who remember to listen. So when the night grows heavy and the silence feels too deep, I whisper her name once more. And in that soft space between memory and breath, I hear her, faint but clear, whisper mine back. If this story reached your heart, dear reader, please take a quiet moment to like and subscribe. Not for me, but so that the voices of children like Abby and the families who still carry them may never be forgotten.